Dembara Juju, Semja, Damja, Donga, Dan, Donga, Yoda, Deva, Juju, Semja, Damja, Donga, Bebe, Deva, Damenda, Semja, Damja, Nire, Jada, Yeda, Dabe, Dan, Yamla, Nebara, Juju, Semja, Damja, Deva, Dan, Deve, Yoda, Dembara Juju, Semja, Damja, Donga, Dan, Donga, Yoda, Deva, Semja, Damja, Donga, Bebe, Deva, Mendava, Juju, Semja, Damja, Nire, Jada, Yeda, Dabe, Dan, Yamla, Nebara, Juju, Semja, Damja, Deva, Dan, Deve, Yoda, Dembara Juju, Semja, Damja, Donga, Dan, Donga, Yoda, Deva, Juju, Semja, Damja, Donga, Bebe, Deva, Dan, Mendava, Semja, Damja, Nire, Jada, Yeda, Dabe, Dan, Yamla, Nebara, Juju, Kange, Teje, Dewa, Jonga, Wa, Meba, Jeme, Ba, Jeba, Meba, Dame, Ba, Wa, Meba, Dame, Tade, Deme, Neje, Nyen, Deba, Nyeje, Jide, Ba, Zobe, Sanje, Manam, Jen, Tamba, Dela, Chase, Lo, Nyende, Jiwa, Zalama, Gwaje, Nyege, Nyeje, Deze, Hayen, Dan, Dola, Bemba, Zeba, Laje, Nyege, Jiden, Dendo, Zeba, Anda yanda lembe tuna namba gunde nazo de somba nyendu chanjo soje sanje kene yomde la chata namze je sabje gyaje gonga wa gondo zambo yuze da gune tola chanje lo Böge juje me do dama re ra len je ni le nyambo de sanje shindo me de ro wai Jogun namda shingwa che bara isho e dama guru rana me da la ga ne ya da ya mi Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Until enlightenment, I go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the accumulation of the practices of giving and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. May all sentient beings be endowed with happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from joyful bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger. Inexpressible, inconceivable perfection, wisdom, unarisen, never ceasing space, the very essence, the domain of ever-present wisdom knowing itself completely. I bow to the mother of all victorious ones in all three times. In dependent origination, there is no ceasing, no arising, no annihilation, no coming, no going, no separateness, and no sameness. I prostrate to the consummate Buddha, the supreme among all teachers, the one who taught this truth, which is free of elaboration. I prostrate to the sublime mother of Buddhas and of the assembly of hearers and bodhisattvas, who through the noble obeisance leads heroes seeking pacification to complete peace, who through the noble of paths causes those who are benefiting migrating beings to achieve the aims of the world, and who through possession of the exalted noble deserves to set forth the varieties having all aspects. This ground spread with incense, adorned with strewn flowers, Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and the moon, I imagine as a Buddha land, and by offering it to you, may all living beings enjoy this pure land. Thus, meeting the teacher of the peerless teacher is due to the spiritual mentor's kindness. I dedicate this virtue for all living beings to be cared for by excellent spiritual friends. Edama Guru Radha Mandala Amen.
Yeah. 아까상아도 이응은 공은 이응은 이층이 셔거든 로사가 지르와 다 이응은 기술들라다 아까상아도 대상이 자르와 이응은 기술들라 가래서나 도도 원여보잖아 민도다 개발소속이 단도줄민다 가 숨조지지 숨다란루다 가 지은 거 시즈 오라다 가솜즈는데 다 가솜이 뭐래서 가봤을 때 좀이다. 그때는 아 지기 가르에서 봐이나 개발지기 네 가르친 거에서 봐이나 이원 해야 돼. 담보 왕은 왕봉원 좀 깨지마치기 되네. 대절라 양결 때문에 왕까지 담보히 되네. 왕까지 니바데 마키에절 까지 담보지에서 인원까지 담보되기 되네. 양결 ane yingon gaji nipa maki bachane, wangon gaji nipa ki, teji so yangyor yingon gaji nipa ki na, doso gaji pel na yinto, pel mar ki wala gore, odo su dogan chi yung gore ese. Ene, tela pel mar ki wala gore. Tene ndoi sumbar ki wala gore, chigi, eba chigi kare zina, ndoi sumbazi diola kari gore zaba ina, ene, wangon gaji tangpo deye ki, wangon gaji tangpo ki tsari jugo tela, ene, 왕은 가지 니바당 인원 가지 당보니 냠도키 대니바 냠도키 기와들라 다 되네 왕은 가지 니바당 인원 가지 당보니 냠도키 대지도 양결 에네 인원 가지 니바키 도시 기와들라 다 르숨바 기와하지 버 대개바지게 이제 돌대래 되네 숨바데 담보 왕원 인바나 왕원 그지 가져 해야 여바나 왕 그지 담보 니바 숨바지바다 그지 가져 버도 그 해야기 차야 여바이나 대 차장지 계산에 주고들다 인원 해야들라 네 윤달 해와려 버리 왕원지 그지 하마데 시소 하마데 계사와던 대지소 다 인원 그지 담보 해야들라 윤달 해와죠 어떻게 다 담보 펠마르 해와지 르숨바르 해와지 대지소 펠마르 해와지 다 디가라 도줄 숨레스 담보줄니 존재왕 게지 담보히 대지소 존재왕 인원 게지 담보히 대지소 존재 왕은 게지 니바히 와서 왕은 게지 레레 바 인원 게지 레레 해wan데스 다 니베줄니 존재왕 게지 니 존재왕은 게지 니바다 존재 인원 게지 담보니 게지 담보니 냠소녀 라리 원숨다 숨도 냠도 해원 되바데스 다들 숨자기도 때문에 왕은 게지 담보되지 이게 대개 차례 주고들 게지 니바데기 해야 되는 냠도 다 왕은 게지 니바 해야 다 냠도 왕은 게지 니바 코란지 이제 아니 인은 게지 담보되 냠 지제 아니 다 쉐바라랑 때도 라리리랑 냠소녀 라리리 자지고라 띵도라 왕은 게지 니바다 인은 게지 담보니 냠소녀 라리지 코니 도몽도 다 쉐바니 냠소녀 라리들 라리지 자네 다 라리지다 숨냠도 해와들라 르숨버케 와즈 대장도 그와 되네 카첼리긴도 니다 카나세긴도 직자도 해온도 르숨제야데 카첼리긴 쉐바니즈도라 왕은까지 직 니바당 인원까지 담보니보데 카첼리기 쉐바 카첼리기 쉐바도 카첼리기 쉐바도 미야기 율데 아네 쉐바랑레 로스 치롤도 여바들라 같이 레즈거 되네 인 코니 냠소니 라리들라 칸나테즈거 칸나테즈도 쉐바네랑이랑 사와인라스 라리기 코 모도 고던도 되자고라 라니기 라니 사라제도 카나라데 쉐바코랑이 코랑 사라제베질 라리기 자도나 들라 칸나테즈니 자자 어도시네 르숨키 조르 숨베존이 지압세 요공바 존재왕까지 타면 주도 코나르 존재 인원 기와 제스 다 윤달케 와져야 돼 어두스 마제줄 진도로 다디 개발선보디 수수레 제바이나데 카살보지니 제바이나다 단데 디가라 용도 군jen자람 군jen 자제 베기다 카살로 되는 개발대소 김도 줄당 개발김 민나대소 뭔가 도 송산도로
근데 계실 저 somebody 저 somebody 계실 당보 직송 사원디 스트레스 디날 탭드 나시 쓰는 배.
단다 대드는 요번에.
아, 네.
근데는 지금 손들 미라 아니요. 단다 되게 나라 라리 진ям도 잔도. 디 군전 자지 버기는 라리 매 삼선다.
저 somebody도 숨 가르치고 그러네.
아. 지금
디날 갑도 시나 저 왕어제 영어제 랑링 숨가 질기 되질기 손시.
단단디 저바이나 왕은까지 니바제 니 영어까지 담보제 혼이 냠스녀 라리 지자기도.
랑리
혼이
지금
냠스녀 라리 지당 시바 숨 되냠도 겨울라 뇌숨 바지.
숨으셔.
배저딜라티 자도. 단디 가랑에 단디 왕은까지
언제 손시는 되로네.
타르가비.
So last time we went through the definition or meaning of the sense direct perceiver and mental direct perceiver. Now we are on the mode of production of these mental direct perceivers, and this is a little complicated because there are different assertions by different scholars, and including what we call our own system. And if you add all those, there are three different ways of explanations or assertions. And it's on page 56 if you have a book, page 56. So the first one is translated here as the produce. There are three assertions. The first one is alternating production. Second is production of three types. And then third, production only at the end of continuum. Three modes of production of mental direct perceiver. The first one, the alternative, which we'll read later. The alternative is basically first there is a production of sense direct perceiver, the first moment, and then the next moment there is a mental direct perceiver production, and then sense direct perceiver. So there's an alternation between mental direct perceiver and sense direct perceiver, one after another. That's what's called here alternating production. And when we say alternating, first sense direct perceiver, after next moment, there's no production of the sense direct perceiver. Immediately that would be mental direct perceiver. And then mental direct perceiver, again, they won't be mental direct perceiver, but sense direct perceiver. So alternating in that sense. And then second would be, the second mode of production is a production of three types. The production of three types is first here. The first production is first moment of sense direct perceiver. And then second moment, mental direct perceiver and self knower perceiver produce kind of self knower. First moment of sense direct perceiver, and then in the second moment there's a production of second moment of the sense direct perceiver, and then mental direct perceiver, self knower perceiver. All of these three simultaneously produce at the same time. So that's the three production of three types. And then third, production at the end of continuum, meaning at the first moment all sense direct perceivers will be produced, whatever they need to produce, and at the end, the end moment would be the production of the mental direct perceiver. So those are the three. And if you read on page 56 in the small font, with respect to how mental direct perceivers indicated on this occasion are produced, there are three assertions. First, alternating production. Second, production of three types. And third, production only at the end of continuum. From among these, the mode of alternative production is as follows. The first moment of sense direct perceiver apprehending a form is produced. Subsequently, the first moment of mental direct perceiver apprehending the form is produced. Subsequently, the second moment of these sense direct perceiver apprehending the form is produced, and so on. They assert that between each moment of sense direct perception, a moment of mental direct perception is produced. So that's the alternating production. The second mode of production of three types is asserted as follows. The second moment of sense direct perceiver apprehending a form, the first moment of mental direct perceiver apprehending that form, and the self-knowing direct perceiver experiencing those two are produced simultaneously. In brief, it is asserted that two types directed outward and one type directed inward are produced at the same time. So two types directed outward, meaning, the object of the observation or the focal object of the mind is external, outside of the mind. And then one directed inward refers to self-knower. Self-knower is explained as, knowing, apprehending oneself. So the object of the observation is there's no external object, rather the consciousness is perceiving, the consciousness itself. So it's a self-knower. And then the mode of production only at the end of continuum is the thought of the law. The mode of production only at the end of continuum is the thought of the foremost father Tsongkhapa and his spiritual son Gyaltsabje. Here, a mental direct perceiver apprehending a form is produced only at the end of the last moment of a sense direct perceiver apprehending a form. Furthermore, it is clear that the law So Geshe was saying, these three are explained clearly in the Quinton's commentary of who these different masters are and their way of assertions and explanations of their own kind of interpretation of these different modes of production explained in detail in Quinton's commentary.
Tadi kunjenlama jahaje begi ijanangla ane tanda pelmar ki waze tanda kepa tambuji yoro ndogan wango gaji ma chiki ane ya yingo gaji ma chiki ane yang wango gaji ma nipa ki ane ya yingo gaji ma nipa ki dusuma pelni kiya dela pelni kiya ndogan di sure zeba ina yen kampu reze sungyo kunjenlama jahaje begi yen kampu reze yade karre zeba ina kundu sade kunjenlama jahaje begi kundu sade reader jenda sama reader zeche ro sama reader tan tegin de wonde she de nanglo la ene yenkin bo de do suma tan sha as teji sun ro tene nipa de tan do sumbar kya de do sumbar kya gen de sure ze baina tamze deje gawa am ane shamkara nen ta asa do sumbar kya dogen de dogen kebat sure zewana tamze deje gawa am shamkara nenta zede ene dosumbar doze kyon dogyo res ene yunda khonar kyon dogen de nalu de chibare ta loben chujo deso ganga da kantar di nalenda ki kheba kyang isare jagar ki kheba kyang re ene loben chujo ki ta yunda khonar ki ge zede den dogyo re ta dinane ni goji kare yore zabana azu misigi ta yingwan zediola tanda keba dezugi chi kejima duzuma pelnendo kejima mangbu yobe namba tabaji shezuma pelnendo kigire zediola pang kejima kazo yona dedan daza yingwan deyang kugi hebe yingwan deyang te nanjin yun de nanjin ji yore ze shegido ta loben chojogi yunda konar kigire zediola 왕은 그지마 가져요 나 tambo 왕은 그지마 여바디 차상 만두 좀 조지네 그지 담보 니바 좀 바지방아 바 가져 버려요 대 차상 조네 되게 가지고 될다 인문지 희기를 해야지마도 윤기 가자 미스기 대셔요 말이죠 다 단다 군jel라만 자야지 바다 벤저 손한테 이찬딘 단다 베찬딘 나로라디 살도아 에네 sur동의 율을 그래서 대한 출동의 율란이 존지 인원 뒤에 깨지마 레레리 미게와 너 그거 이자 살로 제 되게 돈다 가리지 거리지 비동라 다아 인원 제도는 인원데 왕은 거지마 가져 여는 거지마 망보 용초고래 용초 여배 있나요? 인원데 되게 답이 인원지로 거기 답이 인원들라 거지마 찍이 넘버 찍마도 요 말이스 그 윤제데 거지마 찍이 윤제지마도 내야지마도 연구요 말이 된바 인상 다 윤다 코너 계제야 되다 더바 대단 된 거래 아니 윤이 전에 잡아이나 콜라 거지마 찍이 윤제진 윤매바지 윤제는 다 kalorda mutune ma yurumbola hiayo de number de mevajine kajima jig yunza jan re jati ta ralu de zunze wangon zo tabi tambaina ta zunze wangon ni tabi yungan de la kajima jig ma to higo ma ta kana jin danze wangon le na danze wangon ni tabi yungan de la kajima jig ko yunza de kajima jig yunza ji ma to chuk ji ma to ya higo ma re kajima jig ni ma koge 뭐도 땡간도 거래서
So in Quintian's commentary, the sources of these three different masters mention. Basically, it's mentioned in your commentary as well on page 57. And Quintian quote that from Treasury of Reasoning, which is in your book, says by Sajid Pandita. And so in that Treasury of Reasoning, basically they are it mentioned three scholars who asserts those three different modes of production. And so quoting the Treasury of Reasoning text, Quintian says in your book as well, three Indian scholars. The first one who asserts alternative, production in Tibetan is Gen Khenpo, and probably, as mentioned here, Prangyakar Gupta, the Indian master, and then the production in three types is asserted by a Brahmin named Shankara Ananda, and then production only at the end of continuum. Assertion by Dharmottara Khechok. Now, all of these three are the great, masters of Nalanda University, and their different interpretation. And what is important to kind of need to keep in mind here is that when they explain, mental direct perceiver, they are explaining as if mental direct perceiver is a kind of continuous. Has a continuation of many moments, as if kind of after every sense direct perceiver, there is a mental direct perceiver generating or producing. They have explaining in that way, but however, Dharmottara, the assertion says that. First, there's a production of all moments of sense direct perceiver, whether it is, up to maybe 56 moment. Then at the end, there's only one mental direct perceiver produced, not after, every sense direct perceiver. And in your text at the end of page 56, I'm reading continuously. Furthermore, it is clear in the textbook. And then in the bracket, it says, Pension's commentary on the, 차베송다 샤베디나로 벤쟁이 디치샤 제바데 아니 가서 로빈 추라기 남대기 제바시로 언데르는 송시라. That it is necessary to assert that in the continuum of one who looks nearby, one who looks. So the textbook I was informing there to Geshe in your book, it's in the bracket, right? So that's not in the Geshe's Tibetan version. Nearby, who looks nearby, basically referring to ordinary human being, ordinary being. No more than one smallest moment of mental direct perceivable apprehending a form is produced. So, as we said earlier, this is the because sense direct perceiver can have a many different moments of production. It will produce and then it stays kind of continuously produce. But the mental direct perceiver, for example, mentioned here, apprehending a form remains only in a moment. It doesn't goes on continuously, and this is a assertion of what we call our own systems assertion, and so first say there is a mental sense direct perceiver apprehending form or sense direct perceiver apprehending a sound. There's a continuous moment of that production. And all of this cease, and then at the end, there's only one kind of, smallest short moment of mental direct perceiver.
되게 영어 기도를 영어 깨지마 찍마도 미히와 되게 공조도 그 가래 당사서는 디나라 안디 당도 감 디텐제가 될라 디텐제바디 주셔바네 남니데 미다 일템바 오즈 때 가래 주셔바네 남니데 미다 일템바 때 바제디 참만도겠지 참만도겠지 인자서 아 참만도전데 레베니기 소샤요레 자위 다 참만남데기 다 자와 무슨 공두사연에는 디차고라 다 주셔바네 남니데 미다 일템바 참만도나라 주시번에 남니데 미다일 템바 오제 출동기 유징원숨라 출동기 유징원숨이 율도에 되라 나바니 요레스 그가레잖아 왕비 미다일 템바 오제디 에나 주지 왕을 때부터기 에네 주지 왕을 때부치당 주지 왕다 주치 율도 도에 되라 주지 왕은 대당 대기 담비 이문 number ni butere has in dusma tanda teje zu shaba nan mi de ile tembo zedi zu thongade sudong gi so so ki yi wang beng won sumla sudong zana so so ki yi wang beng won sumla ane zu do ba de mig zana zun ze wang khoranje yi ze de la de da be yin wan de ni ze he ze tanda de ni ji de wa ta de 영어 깨지 맞지 마도 미히와데 영어 나오나 윤큐니 매버레베 가르에서바나 더 건전자지비디나 도바마고 제네 다 고가레잖아 이건데 깨지마 무트니 히야라 그 히야기 고합비오 말레스 가레잖아 람상 추지 히야모도 데제데마 다도 람상 아니 왕은 히영거데 왕은이 윤히 영거데 데 히도라 그 영어 히야기 고합 이야기 다 사자당 되되다 마서는 대요 말에서 대장장 고개지마지 큐즈지마도 히도고 말해야 돼. 윤다고나 히세야 돼. 어떤지 지지로.
And on page 57, indicated on this occasion must be understood as referring to occasion where it is said, this is quote from Sutra, he was saying probably from Valid Cognition Sutra. Consciousness of forms are of two types, those depending on the eye and on the mind. The consciousness of the ordinary being generated in a kind of two type, depending first, meaning on the eye, depending on the form. When we look out, looking at the form, there's one consciousness. And then the second one on the mind, talking about mental direct perceiver. So based on these two, depending on these two, consciousness arises or produces. When it says here that, as we were talking earlier, mental direct perceiver, the duration is just a kind of shortest moment. One shortest moment is the longest duration, and it doesn't kind of exist continuously. And in the Quinken's commentary, there's a very extensive, a commentary on that, and many different kind of, say, assertions and, discussions. And the reason why, shortest moment of mental direct perceiver cannot or is not capable of existing continuously is because it doesn't have a, sort of opportunity, to kind of opportunity as well as timing and space to kind of exist continuously, because immediately it is kind of followed by sense direct perceiver. Sense direct perceiver immediately arises. So therefore, the mental direct perceiver cannot kind of, exist or stay continuously.
다 니반이 전선집에 오실다 보고서도 대 가르지고는 다 주시반의 남이 되지 시반 니바데 전선집에 오실라 자고는 대 가르나 하고 미도다.
이번에
되나 가르되시.
이번 거서 갑데 많이 발라드 말해.
감데세 많이 받에 전선집에 오실거다.
간데 야드나 당부 간데 데댕기 간데 야식도서. 되나올라. 갑 데댕기 식다 데댕디 가지 데간데 송으로 숙셔반 남녀데
미데
예바들 갑 데댕 멤버를 공공데 식도서 갑 데댕다 데댕 많이 발라드.
디나라 갑데세 멤버즈 몰라 콘라 비우미도
근데
미도
알레 디나라 알레 이스가 디강 불려오시든
네 존이 잉 레저드비 잉원이 바랑아
알레 소시
잉이 기술라 감데세 잉원 기술라 하지 되다 알레 다 감데세 잉원 다 잉원들 니자고 있어요
갑데데 많이 발레
이 자위
데데 간데도 잉이 생이 될라 얘나 갑데데 게 잉외다 테 많이 배 잉이니
알레 감데세 잉원은
잉이
알레 동동
다들 갑데데 잉이
다들
많이 배
야 잉원 미도 니자고 강달 감데세 잉원한테 다 감데세 자데 참만 되어 가는 때문에 조시번에 남기도 미다이를 때 뭐지 텔라자 다 감데세 많이 저도라 아니 원시들 자세도 원시를 자나도 다 아지르고 있는 미시다.
сейчас не будем сейчас не будем еще таболом тише.
现在基本上就到这一段。现在大的话要以这个他怎么没这个都不应该的进来。平常这个的下个米多。你你真的都是讲，还是讲那下个米多？人家是不得讲的。
On page 57, in small font, third paragraph, the text itself, mental direct perceivers are not perceivers not indicated on this occasion are such consciousness as a clairvoyance which knows another's mind. Now, earlier in the outline, in the earlier, it talks about mental direct perceiver categorized into two, indicated on this occasion and not indicated on this occasion. Indicated on this occasion is just preceding, the paragraph quote from the, sutra. That is the indicated on this occasion. The indicated, not indicated in this occasion, here it says, such as, clairvoyance, which knows another mind. Now, Geshe was saying that in Geshe-la's, sort of own system, the Quintion's document, there's no assertion of this, as a clairvoyance. So he's not sure about how kind of in this context or in this assertion explains that, clairvoyance is considered as the mental direct perceiver not indicated on this occasion.
다 줌바들와 왕원 이용을 라링 오줌 나중 오줌 전에 다 줌바들 라리 셔버들 다 라리 셔운도라 라리라 칭이 예와 니 저래 진남 라리기 칭이 또바다 되지 마트에 진남 라리 오줌 칭이 진남 제도라 지다 셔버 지기는 라랑 냠순요 라리 지요레제 되게가 되지 진남 제도라 다 다 라리들라 지난 도바단데 뭐 맞춰 인지는 라리 무슨 이지 라리 자다다 라리 원숨 자다니라 개발 시기도 근데
저번에 대시 맞춰 인지는 라리 무슨 생이.
나도 전에 다 라리 코란라 도바단데 맞춰 리바 다 도바단데 맞춰래 total match in Zinam Rari Gonsun Yitin, Zinam do give a total match Sardamile Sheba, that Zadolaya, Rari Gonsun Yitimitin, Rari de la Rari Zamji, Rari Gonsum J, Rari Gonsum Tamar than it doesn't matter. Masona, Sums origin was it. Rari Gonsum Timitin is in it. Tandinala Dijashan did, Tanadinala Pachamidu.
내가 동보랑 리 생이 되네라. 릉무슨 그 생이.
Rari singing Zinam Koranjera. And it Toba that is a matter in Zinam Zidela. Rari Gonsum Yitin Doa. Toba that does matter in Zinam, Rari Gonsum Yitin Doa. Then Zinam to give a total matter Satamile Sheba Zid, and Zinam to Kurbe total matter Satamile Sheba Zid, Rari Gonsum Semitin it. Then they Rari Gonsum Samaji young. 다들 가래서 봐이나 배나 라링원숨 배나 원즈미시 냠선여베 원즈미시 깨지 당보서 원즈미시 깨지 당보 냠선여베 라리지요로 대 가래서나 진남도 주베 토토모토베 살도멜레리 바차데요 좋아 다 되게지 니발도 보데 제시 테마다 제시 찬도거 다 코란라 라리 사위게 라리들 코란라 예바이나 세마다 제시 나라망게바 로숨요레스 자도아 자두 단 그냥 문제미시까지 당볼 문제미시까지 당볼다고 냠선여베 라리 데라 라리데 세마지 다 문제미시까지 당본 냠선여베 라리까지 니바지요로 대 제시즈 제 다나징이 문제미시까지 니바 냠선여 라리지요로 대 제시제 말 먼저 미지까지 니바 냠스니에 자리데 제시제 되네 자리도 기분 나라망가 봤 하나 알아주겠다 나라망가 별로 지로 나라망가 별로 코랑 냠스니에 자리데 나라망가 봤지 자고나 나라망가 별로 때 자리라 나라망가 별로 자도는 도저 진남 자도는
And next on page 59, at the bottom of the page, in small font. Now, the third of the mental drag sense perceiver is the self-knowing drag perceiver. In Tibetan, it's a rangrik. Self-knowing drag perceiver. The definition of a self-knower is that which has the aspect of apprehender, This is kind of general sort of meaning of the self-knower, which has an aspect of apprehender, kind of knowing itself. And then a self-knowing the drag perceiver, we further see here, on the back page 60, self-knowing drag perceiver is that which is non-conceptual, non-mistaken, has the aspect of the apprehender. When self-knowing drag perceivers are divided, there are three: those that are prime cognizer or valid cognizer, and those that are subsequent cognizer, and those to which an object appears but is not certain, meaning indeterminate, cognizer. So there are three kind of which are part of the self-knowing direct perceiver. Um, uh, um, uh, just go. So it looks like on page 59, the definition self-knowing direct perceiver, that would be, I don't know, maybe typo should be the definition of self-knower. Then on page 60, the definition of self-knowing direct perceiver, there's a definition of self-knowing direct perceiver there, right? So self-knowing direct perceiver, according to the book, looks like there's two definitions. So the first one, so direct self-knower is the which has the aspect of apprehender, and then on page 60 is the definition of self-knowing direct perceiver. In your book, it says a self-knowing direct perceiver both, right?
I'm looking right now.
Okay, so it's kind of, so on page 60, it would be the definition of self-knowing direct perceiver. On page 50, it would be definition of self-knower itself. That which is non-conceptual, non-mistaken, has the aspect of apprehender is the definition of self-knowing direct perceiver. So, in Tibetan, it's different. So, when we are talking about, three of the self-knowing direct perceiver, three divisions. The first one, prime cognizer or valid cognizer. For example, if you have a sense direct perceiver perceiving blue color, the first moment is what is called prime cognizer or valid cognizer. Then the second moment of looking at the same blue color, the next moment would be subsequent cognizer. And then the third, indeterminate, or those to which an object appear, but it's not certain. Geshe said he wasn't sure about this.
Rari to give a nala mangaba. Rari to give a nala mangaba jatula, Karishaki do Zavena, Penatange, to the Kajiming or give a ombongum sido. To the Kajiming or give one sums and Amazana, Suzuki Gugi, Yewande. A Suzuki Yewande, to the Kajiming or give it, Shabakoran Chate. The Karazan Kokajima chicken or Kajima chicken. Mother here to go, take a Geneva Taganala, and Zuniwang Kajiniva Kiwari. Kidola Zuniwang Kaji Tampe, Tampe, Yingwande, to the Kajim or Yube, to the Kajim or Yubita Yingwanche. 10 years on your rari, 10 years on your rari, then Nalamanga Pares. Then Nalamanga Pare, Zedekarzana, when years on your rari della, and the Carzore. Korang nyam sunyo rari tege, yingwen nyam sunyo rari te, ta tendegi, ta yingwen nyam sunyo, sosoke yi sunzi yingwen nyam sunyo rari tege, sosoke yi sunzi yingwen korang, ane nang nangu ware, ina nge tugo wamare, to tugo wamare, ko karizana, kejima chiki namba chengi wala, kejima chiki yunze la, ane yulden jal tugo wamare ese. Te yunzenji, ta nang la mange bazan, nang zidwa, ane Naya, any Mangabares, you'll talk to a man, take him Zenji, and Nala Mangabares, Teja.
The third, of the three of self-knowing direct perceiver, prime cognizer, subsequent cognizer, and third, indeterminate cognizer, sometimes translated as uncertain, cognizer. The third one would be, the final moment of the final shortest moment of the sense direct perceiver, which is mental direct perceiver of the ordinary being. The consciousness or the mind that perceive that final moment of the shortest moment of the mental direct perceiver is the one that perceives that is considered as the self-cognizer or self-knower, which is not, a certain or indeterminate self-knower. Because, that consciousness or perceiver perceives, the shortest moment of that mental direct sense perceiver. There is a appearance, but it cannot kind of apprehend it, because the moment or duration of that mental direct sense perceiver is too short, too quick. So there's an appearance, yet no kind of apprehension or sort of knowing, because as it's the shortest, the moment or the moment or the duration of existence is extremely short. So therefore, the actual kind of the translation of the word here, object appears, there's appearance of the object, but it cannot ascertain it. It cannot apprehend it. In other word, indeterminate. There's appearance, but cannot kind of really guard it or apprehend it.
Apena di ro jandi do nala mange ba se la di ja nala mange sanji da batla pena mi kare zana zu yi don wala la bar cha ne ze war pa ta nga zu de gar zu da ba jin ba yana tindi gi ta lo ga phi lo ga thanin gi ta zu dan te zo la cha hajang gi dan zi shin yi don wa de la ma 차 용도라 아주 샘대 대지 정도네 대지 정도네 대단량도 나와라 전지게야 지동 지가자듯이 지동다지 라바이나 이 나와 되게 고고어데 돈다 지마지진 가리라고 하면데 하고도 고 말했어 어때 된대게 다 단전비다 모습 더고데 나라망가 바차데 미주 용라 라버데베 내가나 나웨 단전비 원봉 무슨 지요라 or thinking in dance moment Sunday, put Nala Manga Chadrina, Karazan Daji Koku or the Lago Koku or the Tanda Kare Lago Chadanji, Netu go Maris. Tindigi Yumzengi for Nang, that and Nang Nangi over Chik, Chik Shegu over there, Ugi over Chik, Tandaji Majin Komodo Karazan, San Chadanji, Migi, that zoo you don't want to tell them ma Chadu Dula. Tending dancing on some day, Nangu or the Kongigo Maris, that's Nalamang with Sanji, Chidan, Nalamang with Sanji, the Dijaguar.
Yes. Generally, the example of indeterminate perceiver or cognizer, or those to which an object appear but not ascertained consciousness. The common general example would be is when you are watching sort of performer with the performer, when you're watching a performer and the performer being very kind of presented in a very beautiful kind of colorful costume, and your eye is totally kind of focused on that, and along with that, if somebody is talking to you, you are hearing that person, but you really don't kind of totally got what that person is saying. So in that case, sense direct perceiver of the sound is indeterminate. You are hearing something saying, but you are really not getting what, because your sort of concentration is on your eye, kind of the object that your eye is focusing, beautiful kind of performance, and so that hearing of the sound is considered as indeterminate consciousness. You have the appearance of some sound hearing, but you are not really getting what is the meaning, because your attention and focus is on the form through your eye consciousness.
Authentic Tarari deante petinizing to Mariba Jarati Imbere.
Yes.
Teneta ta Najong Musum Richadua. Tajibate Musum Shedolata, Pango Ying Rari Najong Musum in Tajiba Najong Musum de Shegidu, Tadiga Break Jasha.
Yes. So here, self-knowing direct perceiver or self-cognizer, which is indeterminate, you can kind of understood that through that example, that metaphor, eye watching. ear not hearing exactly or not complete kind of getting it. And then the fourth of the mental sense perceiver at the bottom of page 61 is yogic direct perceiver. So we'll take a break here then. So earlier I was informing to Geshe about what was how it was explained in your book by Leather Rinpoche on page 60. So I was informing him about the word possibilities. You can see that on page 60 and 61, right? 4 possibilities between prime cognizer and self-knower, 4 possibilities between subsequent cognizer and self-knower, 4 possibilities between event indeterminate and self-knower. So the possibility, the word itself is kind of, in terms of concept translation, is the problem. It's not exact same word that is in English. So so I was informing that to him, and we were talking about that, when we say possibility, what does it really mean? In English, I don't know what understanding are you getting from this kind of, when you hear, possibilities between this and 4 or 3. So Tibetan word is mu, and we are talking about, that mu, and so, Geshe Sungshin, they said.
제단다 무지도라다 코랑 미세 돈도 돈다서 고든 돈도 저도 가리 레원에 단angala 셰드 되게 셰드 자마네 당에 중나 된데난 도가지 살는 지마들 라나 지마들 바치 대세야 오라 다 돈다데 간 돈도 저보다 무즈야데 가리지라 고구요래 잡아나 고구요래 잡아이나 페나 단다 디나라 단다 라리다 라리 몬숨니라 무자로와 라리다 라리 몬숨니라 무자도라
세마다 디코랑 녀를 빌레라고 성신나 미다 갈거래. 민직도 시.
다 땡을라 다 페이지 페이더 자라이나 자바이나 디한디 자쇼 네
잡아도 미션에 이거.
야 레라고 타바다 미잖아데기도 포문이라 자나데게 부담 포문이 라 무자데 자바이나 가져 용 조그레 자바이나 뭐 숨이야나 숨 임바레 숨이와 땡케레 다 지가서 사야레 다 도민도로 페나 부인라 보모마인바 여르와 보모인라 보모인데게 부모인게 예데르와 다 부담 보모니가 마인게 다 망보시보로와 다 나랑 저기 다지 다딘 조지디가 예베 탭다 배자다 다 계속 간간 고 보마레 보모마레 고 다가는 진 돈도 발랑 semjan라서 계속 간가 랍 보모 당연히요 말와 티니가 가이 많이 맞춰돼요 다 보다 보모니가 이가 인데가라 배나 생이 많이 제지요로 생이 많이 잡거든 생이 많이 잖아 미지라 다 세마니가 여되겐 세마니가 여되겐 미지요로 띠 여되러 봐 어든지도 잡아이나 무지 차거래 kasi jaba ina ta deni to nika imbate budan pomo nika imbachi jaba ina deni to ji po indege pomo indege ta po indege pomo indege sido ku samagi tani jana mato ta ya mani dela nasiki ya ji rimido mabuji yore senji mani yo mani zero deni kim ta mani yo mida mabuji yoro deni to ji le ta na jingi ta 미당 샘쟁이라 자나 미당 샘쟁이라 자바이나 무슨마도 자예요 말에 저 가래 자바이나 미당 샘쟁이라 자바이나 미인라 샘쟁 마인바 요 말에 저 미인라 샘쟁 마인바 요 말에 다 미당 샘쟁이가 인바 요래 semjen mi mai ba yo chogro ne mi dan semjen niga mai gen yo chogro mi mai gen semjen mai gen ta di Tibetan nyugula soba tezo kanga mi mare semjen mare tende dabuji mi dan semjen ni la chabaina tate ribata ere ta ngazu ke sawi ke ko gare zene mu ja go yimten gare zabaina ngazu ke loge ripi ke namche de tozma guyang ro da ripi namche phelagi go tablam jire ma to 타지도 돼 살로다 고에기 차견지 인지 미지다 매나 메다 메어서 차견 되네 말에
So related to commentary here to the word possibility, the Tibetan word which we said earlier, mu, which was saying the meaning of the word itself, mu. He said he don't know, and look into, and if he finds later, then he will share with us. And the purpose of using this, more kind of arrangement, which we'll use some example later, is to really sort of develop intelligence and the skill of intelligence to develop that, so in monastic institution, they use this, arrangement of mu in many different kind of forms or, ways. However, this is not something considered as inevitable, but, greatly kind of beneficial to improve, develop skills of intelligence. And if you use a simple example, you can have possibilities between, say, a human and an ordinary person, possibilities between men and mu, between male and female. Between male and female, we can surely say there's a 3, and then, or we can, for the mobile mu shile because shile. So 4 is better. So when we use, a possibilities kind of arrangement, so we find, for example, in days of 4 possibilities between, male and female. So first we say, if somebody who is, a male, but not female, there's that, being right, male, not female. Then there's a female, but not male. There's that category as well. Then third, neither of them, there's that category as well, any other. Then the fourth, there is a, category which is both, so when we talk about human, male and female, we usually categorize in terms of kind of, biological kind of genitals, and they're human with both genitals, but, neutral. So there is a both. So, so we find 4 categories in between, possibilities, if I use the same word, between male and female. Likewise, we use possibilities between sentient beings and human, kind of 3. Human being, but not sentient beings. We cannot have that kind of, that is not possible. A human being, but not. But we have both of them, sentient beings as well as a human, the human itself. And then we have somebody that is. Oh, the member the last me yimba semja mayamba the last me yimba jela semja member yomaro. Oh, niga yimba dioro. Niga member. And that which is sentient beings but not human being. There is beings which are not human being. So 3. So that's how you kind of understand sort of concept of, and same applies with here when it talks about, so Geshe was early, the 4 possibilities between prime cognizer and self-knower, between subsequent cognizer and self-knower. So you see 4 possibilities. So that's what I was, informing Geshe. It's good to, give you kind of concept of how this is understood and why this possibility.
인지민지 중지나 여고다 대응해봐요 말이지 지금 내 라바데 차장 렘바 인고에 내 봐요 말에. 에 가르잖아. 당에게 리백이 잘다 보지 떠내듯이 가져다 세고래. 에 다가는 지금 알아도 소소소소기다. 또도데 자고도 리백 남자 배하게 제도. 다 시진 남자 망다 지 예와 망 지금 리민다 망보 여와데 고이체도 하고 이체도 다 무자고데 되래. 다음 봐서 미니가 바로라다 저바제바이나 내다도 무자셔겨들라 그런 게 리베남 저 살도 되니 telangaba 용초거래 용시 그 시바지 차대요. 근데 저들라 양고 무지제 당연히 무지자바데 무숨기나라 줄 줄도요래. 어떤 무니기나라 줄 시바차고래. 또 망쳐야들라 무숨 망쳐야들라 무자사 강이면 무숨 망쳐요. 다 발자발자 내봐서도 버지래. 무숨을 뉴어 하람이요 말에. 봐. 지당 숨 가로나라다 무자사 강이 못들라. 지당 숨 가로나라 니두거. 어디리 지래. 다 당이 때네 다 되게 리바데 자네 다는 가족에 다 셰바당 라리라. 봐. 원숨다 라리라 무지자서.
the concert 잡는 prime cognizance 테마다
라리 세마다 라리라 무지 다 세마다 라리라 무지 자라바이나 세마다 라리라 무지 가데스 자르게레 자바이나 다 세마이라 라리 마인겐 찍제 라리 인라 세마 마인겐 찍제 라리도 세마 니가 인데겐 찍제 에네 니가 가야 마인겐 찍제 세마 니가 마인겐 찍제 도스 자르고라 다 담보 라리 인라 세마 마인바데 가르자게레 자바이나 배나 문제 미시 원본집이다 미시지어로. 원본집에 미시 깨지 니바잖아 되게. 라리 깨지 니바 코라잖아 되게. 라리라 참마다 제시 나라만가 숨자서 하는 게. 인도 제시가 임부터 그 테마리고 말해. 다 라리 소규르베 제시데 데고 라리레 참마 말해서. 좋아. 되네 참마일라 라리 마인게 다 문제 미시를 또이나 문제 미시 깨지 담보 서부터 코랑 쳐진잖아. 고 세마레 라리 말해서 때 윤장 가래잖아 세마레 가래잖아 율 살도 별로 무슨래 되어로 토마토베네 무슨데 고 세마임비 캡스 거래 데 자네 세마레스 라리 말에 가래잖아 같이 되기 셔바레스 라리나 카나테 거래 고 치율 도베네 베 로지레 되어로 데 자네 같이 되기 셔바미잖아 고 라리 말해서 다 니가 임바데 문제 메시 거지 담보 냠스니가 라리 거지 담보지요 참아지요로 그런데
almost that
세마다 라리 니가 인다근데 다 라리 거지 담보지요로 라리 거지 담보잖아 문제 메시 거지 담보 냠스니가 라리데 오 참아래 되어래 다 라리가 되어래 니가 되어래 다 세마다 라리 니가 마인게 다 맞아 다 망보요래 고 세마다 라리 니가 마인게 당게 문제메시 깨지 니바지 않아 디고래 깨지 니바 숨바지바데 강가 하니까 세마 말에 라리가 말에 지그래 다가나 진기다 통주주 교배다 대부다 누구라서 받대서 자난디거든 돈도발라 미랑 semjan라서 다 가래 인바이나데 탐자에네 그 세마 말에 라리가 말에 니가 마인 버차대요.
The possibilities that we used some example earlier. It doesn't necessarily mean that what Geshe used earlier, some example doesn't necessarily mean that they are truth or fact, and it doesn't mean that those were mentioned in some kind of scriptures. And what Geshe said was there's no certainty in that. So what Geshe mentioned, using those example, is purely based on his own kind of intelligence or understanding, and with that kind of using different possibilities of move, it helps you to understand, as we said earlier, to develop one's own kind of skill or intelligence in understanding different categories of phenomena or things. And so earlier, when Geshe come up with certain numbers of possibilities, through arguments, debate, somebody could, oppose what he said and come up with the, other possibilities, saying that what he said for could turn later into 3, could turn into 2, it depends on level of, or the intensity of the intelligence and how one kind of, how one present it, with one's own intelligence or logical reasoning. However, mostly, possibilities, when we look into the kind of, the understanding of possibilities, the most possibilities would be, comes between kind of 3 possibilities of 2 phenomena, or, between 3 and 4. With that kind of concept or understanding, if we come back to the, the text in your commentary, at the end of page 60, because here, it is explained through possibilities, right? So it says, the first mention in your commentary, at the end of page 60, last line, there's 4 possibilities between prime cognizer and self-knower, or valid cognizer and self-knower. So when you say 4 possibilities, immediately you need to know that, you will know that, there's a one, the first one is self-knower, but not, prime cognizer. And second, there's a perception, which is prime or valid cognizer, but not self-knower. Then the third is, which is both. And then third is both, and then fourth, neither of them. So there's that perception consciousness, and that's the concept that you need to get here. So so the Geshe was saying that the first one, self-knower, but not prime cognizer or valid cognizer. The example would be subsequent cognizer, consciousness or perceiver. Subsequent cognizer is there's a subsequent cognizer, which we saw earlier, is self-knower, but subsequent cognizer is not at all, a prime or valid cognizer. So that would be the example. And the second, that which is a prime and valid cognizer, but not self-knower, would be the example. Geshe gave the same example of what was given here. The first moment of apprehending, or eye consciousness apprehending a blue color, that first moment is a valid cognition, but it's not self-knower. And how do we know that? Because the first moment is always new, the first kind of the first timer, and new knower, and it is not directed within, rather it is directed outside. So with that, we know that the first moment of eye consciousness apprehending a blue is valid or prime cognizer, but it's not self-knower. And then there's a consciousness or perceiver, which is both. We can use the second moment of self-knower. Second moment of self-knower can be both, self-knower as well as, sort of not neither. The first moment of self-knower, the first moment of self-knower is valid as well as self-knower. And then fourth, neither of them. And that could be second moment of eye consciousness apprehending a blue color, or, like book, animals, human, these are none of those two. So that's how you kind of, they understand, when you see in your commentary 4 possibilities between this and that. So that's the concept behind this,
어떻게 다 심바트도 강가라다 또 마비 바자는 거
Yes.
소소가 잘해. 지금까지 제시당 라리로 와.
제시다 랑리.
제시다 라리라 잘해나 단단한 신도 마리 다 가르쳐도 제시인 라리 마임바. 라리라 제시 마임바. 라리다 제시니가 마임바. 아니가 임바스.
Yes.
도즈마 잘해도.
No.
다 제시인 라리 마임바. 양 당연한 지바지야나 당고즈 미지 그지 니바도 고 제시리 되어라. 오라리리고 말이. 제시인 비김세 가르잖아. 그지 담배 냠스냐. 그지 담배 또진 베던지 라리앙 또 베잖아. 콜라 제시나. 제시 제도나. 말 그지 담배게 또진 베던 라리앙 콜 다가랑자 또 베잖니. 콜라 제시 제자거래. 도전 더 던지 라령 더 배차네. 데 제시 라리 말에 가르서는 라리 많이 비김전 가르서는 꼭 같이 되기 제발에 당게 무슨 미지까지 당보다니까 아 지바 차대로 윤지 차대로 인도 같이 되기 제발 미차네 꼭 라리 차고 말아. 제시를 라리 말에서 근데 라리 인라 제시 많이 봐. 당게 라리까지 당보다 다가랑 거 자난 디데요레 아니 또 나라망에 버기 라리 자난 디데요레 티니가 라리 레데요레 고 제시리고 말에 지그레 근데 라리 다 제시 니가 인데간 다 라리 수기베 깨지 니바 지어라 무슨 미싱 냠선요에 무슨 미시랑 냠선요에 라리 깨지 니바다고 찾아와이나 고 라리레 제시레 니가 레데요레스 근데 라리 다 제시 니가 마이겐 양 당연히 신기 다 라리 다 제시 니가 가요 마이게 무슨 미시기지 당볼 또 자샤베나 디데요레 고 라리 마레 제시 마레 쳔마레 라리 마레 카칠테레 디 그지 당볼 또 코란지지 대민이 다 리로와 관계라 소바 다 다진도 대민이 단두지기 저 여도저 되던데 대자난 디고
So you use the same kind of concept or logical understanding for the remaining as well. The remaining meaning on page 61, you have in the commentary you find 4 possibilities between subsequent cognizer and self-knower. So there's a 4 possibilities, meaning there's a consciousness which is subsequent cognizer but not self-knower. Second, there's a self-knower or not subsequent cognizer, and then third, which is both, and the fourth, neither of them, and therefore, and if you look at the subsequent cognizer but not self-knower, you can use what we used an example earlier. The second moment of the eye consciousness perceiving or apprehending a blue color, because it is a second moment, which means it's already apprehended. It is not and it's focused outside. It is not internal, not self-knower, but it is subsequent cognizer. And likewise, that which is subsequent self-knower but not subsequent cognizer, you can use the first moment of a self-knower perceiving anything or indeterminate. These will come under self-knower but not subsequent cognizer. And consciousness which is both, you can use that for that a second moment of self-knower consciousness perceiving a blue color. And then neither of them, you can use consciousness, eye consciousness perceiving blue color first moment, as well as any other kind of composite or impermanent things, all comes under this 4th category.
데이터 디버지로 데네다 다 나정은 좀 되셔 나정은 좀 되자셔면
So we'll consider that as a kind of sort of sufficient to help you understand this part of explanation possibilities. And with that, we'll stop here at the beginning of yogic direct perceiver. And any questions? Earlier, Geshe was saying, might seem that maybe this is. He was wondering if it has become too complicated, too difficult to understand. No. Mendoza, kunso kale. Shuka koya kale Mendoza.
Ale. Koya kale mena ni sanyi muji tari jinishosa.
Okay, saying if you have no, then come back with come back with come back and bring possibilities. You can pick up any 2 things and then.
Sumbati karo. Nalamanga bada rari le mare.
Sumbati. Oh, nalamanga bada rari.
Oh, nalamanga bada rari. Ni tange nalamanga 돈다 가서 셰서로 나라망에 버서 간디지 자고면 대셰서 다 라리기 돈다 셰서고 카나세기 셰바쿠랑 셰바냠선요 셰베댕도 자지 셰바라리 셰바 치 율라 템베 셰바 강임바 코냠선요 그랑 도겐기 다 랑기랑자리 지 데네기 로질라 다 라리제 데제가란 진남제 인둘라다 데네기 나라 망에 바단다 라리니라 모지두가 무슨도 데코
리트너스 테브나 시우든 도디나 손세 시레샬라
아
시시르는 시레르 데시게샤 근데 데바디나
어때다 리바치바치네다
팀 멤버십 계시세
어 데기 리바데 자네로 데기 리바데 자네 다에 세지 단다 디나마 자 메교 젬바지
So as you were saying, we can bring back possibilities of the one that was said here in your page 61. There are 4 possibilities between indeterminate perception or consciousness and self-knower. There's 4 possibilities between these two, and we already sort of explained before what is indeterminate, or object appears but not ascertain, or indeterminate consciousness or perception, and self-knower. We went through the explanation of both. Self-knower, that which is an aspect of apprehender. So since you know the meaning of these two, you can come up with the possibilities. In the book, I told Geshe it is already in the book, but he said bring back with different example or illustrations, not one that is in the book, of course. So what are the 4 possibilities, and you can come up with the example and saying that this is the example of these 4 possibilities, which is indeterminate but not self-knower, which is self-knower but not indeterminate perception, both, and neither of them.
예.
Any other questions?
Yeah, actually. So when it comes to self-knowing direct perceivers, or in regards to self-knowing direct perceivers, if I'm not mistaken, the Yamaka Prasangika school does not assert a self-knowing direct perceiver. Am I mistaken on that?
어떤 일을 라리 두고 말이지. 라리 좋은데 근데 senza 찾아요. 아니 라기 비나라 라리 두고 초지요래. 또 라리 켈랭겐 senza 래 노데베 두고래.
디나로 거주 디나를 제바디나 송샤. 주대기 대신.
둘다 수신도 면에서 다 단결 라리 제게 말해.
맞아.
라기 비나로라 나저 너도 집에 뭐 라기가 발자라리 제게 오래. 더. 아무도. 나저 좀 뭐 라기베 라기베 나라 제게 가지 요래. 자당 라기베 자당이 제게 오면 라리 제게 오면 너데빈 되고 오래. 네 지담에 발자라리 켈랭고 말에 섬선다. 다다지 등면도 연 심하들은 좀 달라는 되지요.
거주 디나를 대날도 송샤 디나 등이 제베는 yes, that is right. The middle way consequence school, Madhyamaka Prasangika school, doesn't assert self cognizer direct as not they don't assert self cognizer, so there is no direct or self cognizer of any kind. And within the 4 philosophical schools, there are different those who assert self cognizer or self knower. Schools such as Sutra school, and then mind-only school, and then within the middle way school, middle way autonomous school within that sutra, that which, so I was informed, Geshe, it is mentioned in the commentaries as well, which, schools asserts self-know or self-cognizance, which don't. But Geshe said he can bring back in the next class, which school kind of asserts self-know and which doesn't.
And so in that regard, when it comes to the three modes of production, what does the Madhyamaka Prathamika school assert as most correct? Or the Aryas, what do they assert as most correct?
계주 숨지어라. 이 계주 숨들라니 오면 유백이다. 거기 템바에 뭐 되고 그래서.
달률배.
오면 유백 계주 숨시도.
달률배 다디 잉원 기술대.
대마교 되스마교 견다 혼나교.
tab 달률배 잉원 기술대 다 윤다 코너 기어 되지. 자금에도. 더 간다 도셈이기 윤다 기어 되지 자거래. 란루르서 거라다. 도셈이기 란루 도대바는 생산백이 란루르 기술대 자격이 기술대 단다 숨기나니 윤다 코너 기어 되 자거래. 더 윤다 코너 자고 임자 가래잖아. 잉원대 왕원이 담배 다 어봉원 숨지기 담배 잉원인들라 그 이야기 고갑들라 고갑지 까지마지기 인자지마도 윤통도만도 요 말했어요. 윤통 성장 콜라 윤용 쪽을데 거기 윤치마도 이야기 고갑이 요 말했어요. 단나디나라 데니 군일남자지베 데데세 갑셔도.
So probably the third one at the end of continuum, and this is asserted by, here we say it, our system, referring to from the fourth school of tenets, sutra and mind only school. And as we said earlier, because direct mental sense perception arises from sense direct perceiver, and because of direct mental sense direct perceiver, the duration is so short, as we said earlier, it cannot sort of sustain its continuity, and therefore 윤통의 경기 가서
군일남자지베기다 베나 순지 왕원 대당 되게 담배 순지 영원이요로. 군이가 희야기 유조 저장 상대와 지버레스 순지 왕원 희비 유조 상대에는 대담배 영원대 영원 희야라 희비 유조 저장 상대여버데 군이 지버레스 임바이나야 순지 왕원들라 그지망부 기도고래 영원들라 기도고 뭐 기도고 매바디 고 갈텐 가래잖아. 그지 니바 되게 뭐 희야라 현지고 순지 영원 그지 니바 희야라 순지 왕원 그지 니바도 숨바데 저게 내지고래 되게 굉장히 순지 영원들라 그지 림기마 기도고 말이스. 그 가래서 그지 지기 윤자진들라 그지마 당분이 니바 표도 바로들 큐크지 영원 기도고 얼마도 제 그지 니바 숨바도마 바지는 못니 기대고라. 된디지마도 네 코니가 희위 유조 창대 여바이나양 갈진 여메라 개발이요레스 희위 갈진 순지 왕원라 희위 객지게 요마레 인자 그지 당분이 니바 숨바지바 바지네 히투고레스다 대소션.
Kunjin Lama Janshaba Kunjin says that when we look at the mental sense mental direct perceiver and this might help us, and mental direct perceiver perceiving of form and sense direct perceiver perceiving of form, both of these two in terms of their causes, there's no differences, both has, but as we said earlier, sense direct perceiver, when it arises or when it produces, it produces in the many different kind of produce and then goes on kind of continuously. Moments after moment is a production of sense drug perceiver, while there's no basically obstacles, hindrances for their production. On the other hand, mental drug perceiver, although it arises, produces, but as soon as it produces and kind of move from first moment to second moment, there's an interruption by the sense drug perceiver. And therefore, the mental drug perceiver doesn't kind of sort of exist continuously like a sense drug perceiver. So that's what Quintin says. You didn't get it?
No. It's cooking. It's cooking.
Uh-huh.
It's so hard because we're splitting hairs
Yeah.
between the different schools of thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's also hard because Ladi Rinpoche sets them all on the table and says choose.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes it's
Mm.
I forget which hat are we wearing? Are we wearing Sakitraga? Are we wearing Are we wearing so it's just
그런데 니와 당보다 지난 고고들은 다들 디치도사. 고액 탑지시고 열었어. 그걸로 삼려 나올. 디나올다 좁다 담아라 그 송셔로. 안데 다들 고대 전부 좁다 가게 원기 되즈음에 대지 하고 도사. 되게 지갈로 그 마고에도시. 근데 지단 로리 남샤 되는 요 거는
이 그래서는 무슨이 로레스
condition.
너도 선생님이 통화래.
Yeah, when we're studying, generally, this lyric here, mind in awareness. The general understanding is that we are following the assertions of mind only and Sutra school. Yeah, these two schools are primary one that we are following. The interpretations, yeah.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
So in this topic, the word moment
Uh-huh.
is discussed a lot.
Uh-huh.
I wonder if Geshe can talk a little more about
Okay, sure. Mm-hmm.
the definition of
Mhm.
moment and specifically, I've heard some people talk about moments as a discrete thing, like
Yep.
a point in time. It's like,
Yep.
here it is,
Mhm.
and here's another one,
Mhm.
here's another one,
Mm-hmm.
which to me does not make sense.
Mm-hmm.
But rather the time is a continuum
Mm-hmm.
flow.
Mhm.
So when we talk about a moment, are we really just that's a way in language to talk about, some duration of
Mhm.
flow of time.
나 요새 인지도를 모면은 쇼송셔서 내가 아주 교도 표현할래도 깨직말래다. 깨직말래 저러. 근데 깨직말래도 안데 그 컨데스 코고로 해서 가시에 쉬는 다가로 깨직말은 좀 투주 독도도 요로시 독도직 되네 균직 균인 규숨 다 인디언도 그런 게 된다로 이렇게 고면도 사디 칼로레 다디 계기 식 배주당달 나오라 티킹 계직말래질 컨데질 코고래라도 계직말래도 콜로 첨바로 쇼래 야마나 칼로 투주기 균기 차로시 컨데질 코고래스 인지도 식 모멘레 당아주 베베 계직말래
다 깨지마세돌라 깨지마들라 지다 나세고 고 타라 예와체 몽보요래 자조지 깨지마 찍세다 통대 깨지마 찍세다보다 되네 되게 깨지마 찍세다 되게 깨지마 찍세다 되게 깨지마라야 나세게 고 타라게 예와 몽보지요래스 단 더르드니 제바나 아주 깨지마 찍이 윤제데 간리럽이 자고래서는 페나 딘디지기 내갑서도 비치 티 누구니 두스마 다바네 틴 다데라 인자 가져진 어디 깨지마 찍이 인자서도 자고 딘디지라 다 깨지마 찍이 윤제데 데레스
moment, in the Tibetan word Khechok, we find different interpretation of the meaning itself, meaning the length of that moment. So one is usually we call the moment of completion, the duration of completing one task is considered as a one moment. Then there's a moment of the shortest moment at the end of duration is a one way of assertion. Then there is a tungda chigda chugitha khar.
되게 그지만 찍 자소지 그지만 찍 근데 자소지 그지만 찍들이 다 대인 삼성다 야 자산진 대치 등미도 근데 자지 탄대대요 너라 그야 프레기 윤제 지어라
차가 저거는 내가 차가 저거라도 내가 직 지역이 뒤주기 얘들 통대람으로 연쪽으로 함께 실었습니다.
호텔 자소지 그지는 자지 풀 탕는 데는 그야 풀이 내거나 탕다 군이 벌어 이 바르ян지어라 근데 제가 제일 자소지 그지만 찍잖아요.
So duration of the final moment of
다다는 이게 양대진 거래. 그러나 마음이 더 자자버는 마음이 답에 나로기 놈 강가 존이죠. 타마타만 라블라블지니 시간을 못 마음이 차상 존이다. 어디 매기지 라진지어라. 그 시간을 못들라 달랍랍 되는 거지. 저기도 어디네 되지라야 그지만 지금 지금
so
시어도 마시비 내가 paraде.
The duration, completion of one task, and Geshe was using, that duration in terms of kind of, the quickness of the moment, a bird flying from the ground and leaving the ground and flying between that duration, so one moment. And then there's also kind of, interpretation of lamp, lamp flickering at the end when it is dying or when it's, going off. So that moment between its existence and its kind of, going off, that's a one moment. And usually, kind of commonly, when we say momentary, we use the duration as the, the duration of the snap sound. That's a one moment. So there are different interpretation of when we say momentary and moment. Different interpretation in general. The moment word itself has a different interpretation.
그지마들라. 그지마 타란 줘들라. 다 두다지 메시기 가가장 얘기 말해.
네. So, in terms of the subtle and the coarse level of momentary, there are different interpretation of, what is subtle and what is coarse, momentary or moments.
That makes sense.
다음에다. 아리라 고에
신감수 벤단데와 머리 중외 내 체레 생화 텐진 야조인
샤베시데 바도 텐주로지 자바바베
제라 겐바다 고도 zambo데 안데젠도
데다 군예 제소 달로
젠게와 데다 담제라
라도 조존자베
야와 담제게 모와 강라 초도 아바덴다
나시네게베 자와
데겐자
상보체제라도 모와라이 장주 셈조
렘보제 마제 바나마 겐교제 제와
냠바메 바라야 콘레 콘도 베와라쇼 토니 타와
렘보제 마제 바나마 겐교제 제와
냠바메 바라야 콘레 콘도 베와라쇼.
In the land encircled by snow-white mountains, the source of all happiness and benefit flows in your person, charity, Tenzin, Geshe, remained until samsara ends. Just as the Bodhisattva Manjushri attained omniscience and Samanta Bhattacharya, so now I dedicate these merits to train and follow in their footsteps. As all the victorious Buddhas of the past, present, and future praise dedication as supreme, so now I too dedicate these sources of my merit for all beings' good actions. May the supreme jewel Bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more. May the supreme jewel view of emptiness that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish but increase more and more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.